And I think also my clients, I think when I see Black youth struggling with some of these parts of our identity and this idea that they don't fit into the community because of their interests is when I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. And it really makes me be a lot more verbal because I was like, I know what it's like to live with this as a young person. And I've seen the damage that it does to even some of my friends who are adults now, that if I can have a very important conversation with one young person who can then grow up knowing that they are enough because they are, then my job is done.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Camille, and this is Enneagram for the Culture, where two dope Black therapists discuss how therapy, Blackness, and the Enneagram come together.
Boom. All right, so in this episode, we are chatting with Erica, who identifies as a 6.
And so if you want a deep dive on what it means to be a 6, in episode 10 on both season 1 and 2, we spend a lot of time talking about that type structure. But for a little refresher, our type 6s are called the loyalist. They're the types that are going to be very committed, prepared, they're responsible, they're very engaging. They live in the head triad, so they live in their heads a lot. And so they can sometimes present with some form of anxiety. Not that other numbers do not struggle with anxiety, but it can show up for 6s in a specific way. Their basic fear is of not having support or guidance and not being able to survive on their own. Their desire is always to find security and support. And their messages are sometimes it's not okay to trust myself, or it's I am good or okay if I do what is expected of me so that I can keep that security and stability.
Yeah, so in this conversation with Erica, subtypes comes up. And we talked about subtypes in the past. So if you want to get a refresher and kind of get a more expansive explanation of what subtypes are, go back to season 2. We actually did a mini episode just talking about subtypes, and you'll find that right in between episodes 5 and 6. But just briefly, subtypes is short for instinctual subtypes. And those instincts are instincts that we all kind of carry with us just as a part of our human nature. And so that includes social, sexual or one-to-one, and self-preservation. So again, we all kind of have these instincts within us. And as it applies to the Enneagram, each type has a stack, if you will, when it comes to your subtypes. And so essentially, it's the lens through which you kind of see the world. So for example, if your primary subtype is self-preservation, then you're gonna kind of filter everything that you experience and see in the world through that lens of how does it impact me surviving? How does it impact me being comfortable? How does it impact me having my needs met? And so we'll get into why this is so important to know, but it's a really relevant topic that sometimes folks skim over. It also really adds a lot of variation to identifying your type. So when you add, landing on what your dominant type is, plus your wing, plus your subtype, you're not looking at just 9 different types. You're actually looking at, 27 different types.
Yes. And kind of the sort of famous number when we think about subtypes is the 6s, because the way that the subtypes show up for 6 can be pretty starkly different. And like Kim said, it's really important with typing because as we actually hear in the interview, the subtype kind of influenced how Erica came to her number and what she had thought about the number. So we're actually going to jump into what the subtypes look like for type 6. So for a type 6 who is of the self-preservation instinct, that is going to look like they're going to show up in a way that the fear and insecurity, anxiety that I was talking about is a little bit more of a louder theme. They want to build strong alliances with other people, and they do show a lot of personal warmth. They're very affectionate, warm-hearted in their interactions, and they repress their anger and are hesitant to share opinions because they don't want to break off the self-preservation of having that community. They feel less fear and insecurity when they can be connected and warm to other people. When a 6 is of the social instinct, then that subtype is going to connect to social ideals and working for a cause. They're really into standing up for the weak and justice, and they tend to be a little bit more black and white. And what that looks like is it can sometimes actually look like a 1. And so that social instinct of a 6 can show up being very precise, careful. They want to follow rules and procedures. They're very dutiful and rational, and they want to make sure that everyone knows what is expected of them. They want to have a system that they trust so that they can balance their self-doubt. And sometimes that means that they can be out of tune with their personal feelings. And then the final one is the 1-to-1 or the sexual instinct for a 6. And this is the one that, again, kind of is famously talked about because it's the counter type. And all numbers have a counter type. And a counter type means that it's the subtype that kind of looks very different than the traditional description of the number. And for
Definitely.
6s, that counter type can look very vastly different. Other numbers counter type can just look a little bit different. But the 6s, it's like a whole other ball game. And so for 6s, the counter type is that sexual 1-to-1, and that can look like an 8. It can look like the way that they approach their anxiety is by actually becoming very dominant and very bold and very assertive and intimidating. And so there's lots of mistypes that happen with this because, again, it doesn't look like the other 2 subtypes that we just talked about. Their belief, the subtype for sexual 1-to-1 subtype, is that the best defense isn't good offense. And so they're going to be on top of the fear and almost running head on into it. They're going to look like a daredevil. They're going to look a little bit more rebellious. They're going to look puffed up and strong. And so they believe that their strength is their safety. And that's what helps them quell their fears or their doubts. So again, that counter type for 6s is really unique. And so it's really interesting to look at all of the subtypes because it really can help you navigate as you're learning about yourself through the Enneagram, where you kind of fit and what makes sense to you in the structure of your number.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And so, like she just mentioned, this can be incredibly helpful, and we would argue like critical when you're trying to figure out your type, because like Camille said, each type has a counter type, and these subtypes, they're going to kind of color each type in a different way. And so if you're reading about the descriptions and you're not keeping that in mind, you might take a test and land on, for example, me being a 3. But what you're reading, like, it feels like it doesn't resonate so much. And it could be because you're a counter type. The self-preservation 3, that's a counter type for the 3. So there are a lot of things about 3s that I read when I was initially learning about my type that just didn't feel like it fit. So it can be really, really necessary when it comes to learning about your type and trying to figure out what your type is. And then also contextually how that impacts our relationships again. So like I mentioned, we all have all 3 of these instincts in us, right? And so, like we said, they're stacked. So if you have self-preservation as your dominant instinctual subtype, like we said, self-preservation kind of being considered safe and comfortable, that's going to be a priority for you and what you really look for when you're moving through the world. But then that last stack, the at the bottom, that's going to be your repressed subtype. And that's also going to be really important to know in relationships. That can be kind of a blind spot for you or something that you just don't pay as much attention to. And so it can be helpful to know that, again, so that you can keep in mind how it plays out in your relationships. And also for the folks that you're in relationship with, it can be helpful to keep in mind that sometimes the instinctual subtypes, you might kind of find yourself being in community with people who have a similar stack as you, or even a similar primary subtype. So Camille and I were talking about this before we got started. She and I are both self-pres. Two of my close friends are self-preservation. I'm pretty sure my parents are self-preservation. And so kind of knowing that, we can possibly attract and kind of sync up with people who have that same primary instinctual subtype. But again, having that awareness of how whatever subtype is repressed for you, how that can pan out and impact relationships. So that's why and how it can be beneficial to be aware of these.
So let's jump into the interview and hear Erica as she talks about being a type 6.
Oh, so we're excited about today.
Very
good vibes, good energy already.
Yes.
Want to introduce our guest?
Yes, I'm excited to introduce our guest. Today we are interviewing Erica Smith. Erica is a North Carolina native and owns a group mental health practice in Raleigh, North Carolina called Whole Mentality. Erica has been a social worker for 10 years and has worked with survivors of interpersonal violence, trauma, and continues to serve survivors of trauma as a trauma therapist. Erica works with people as young as 5, primarily as an EMDR therapist, but also as a DBT and pain reprocessing therapy therapist. Erica has lived with an autoimmune disease since she was 12 and supports a lot of folks also processing through their own experiences with chronic illness. After several years as a clinical supervisor and consultant for therapists, Erica opened her consulting business where she provides equity consultations and training for organizations, along with community support for therapists in her Embodied Practice Collective, where she and other clinicians discuss growing professionally, utilizing an anti-oppressive framework while growing businesses aligned with their values and identities. Outside of that, Erica is a highly caffeinated adoptive dog mom who has a current obsession with drunken noodles and the TV show Monk. Hello, Erica.
Hi.
Hi.
That was awesome.
Love the bio.
You're like that girl.
100.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
We are happy to have you on. And thank you for just even from your bio, the work that you're doing and all the different areas that you're touching folks. And just really neat to hear what you're doing in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So there's that. Thank you.
There's that. Okay. Well, let's get started.
Yeah. So, Erica, you know how the Enneagram showed up for you. I'm going to talk about how it showed up for me. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. I'm going to be quick. First. I'll be really fast. This week, I checked out a co-working space that I signed up for. Like it's a co-working space, but they market themselves as a club. So you have to like buy a membership and, I've had it for probably a few months, and this is my first time like making the time to check it out. And when I tell you, I walked in and felt like so at home. It's really, really nice. It's really, really dope. But that whole vibe and energy of everybody just sitting and being productive. I worked for like probably 2 hours and I got so much done, and it just made my week. I went back the next day and I can't wait to go back next week. Guys, it is 24 hours, 7 days a week. So I could go at 2:00 in the morning if I want to. I will try not to, but I might. I can't make any promises. I love it. I'm so excited.
I want you to go at 2 a.m. because I want to know who else is there at 2 a.m. How many people are there? What's the vibe of the people there? I have questions about the 2 a.m.ers. But this tracks. I have some 3 clients. And when we talk about productivity, when I hit the nail on the head was when I said, maybe you should go to a coffee shop and work. The way her face lit up, she was like, I love nothing more than being in a coffee shop. And she even did, she was like, I'm typing and I'm important and I'm doing stuff. And she said, you know what else she said? I sometimes try and stay longer than other people. Like, look how much I'm working. And then she said
competitive stuff. Yeah.
The competitive. Yeah. And then she said airports. She loves, she's like, I love bringing my work to an airport because look at me. I am important. It's like, this is amazing.
It's a thing. I mean, in college, it would be the library, right? Like I used to love to go and work, but I wouldn't be in college. Like I wasn't really in there working. I was just in the midst. But this is different. I was actually getting work done. I loved it. Highly recommend.
I love that you found your home, your place that's going to inspire you and keep you motivated with all the other workers working. Yes,
I appreciate it. And I will. I'll let you know how the 2 a.m. if I end up doing that. Balance is important. So I'm trying to, but if it happens, I'll be sure to let y'all know.
Do you think it's going to be a lot of people at 2 a.m.? What's your guess?
My guess is probably not.
Okay.
It wasn't super busy at 2 p.m. Yeah, it wasn't a ton of people, which I kind of like. I mean, it was a good number, but it wasn't like crowded. There was plenty of space to like be comfortable. There are couches, there are high top tables, low top tables, like little like bar stool areas. It's really, really nice. Downstairs, upstairs. Coffee. Yeah.
I think that we could probably go around the Enneagram about like how people work at a coffee shop, because I like working at a coffee shop, but it's not motivating to me. Like I think for you, it's not like, it doesn't energize me. I like all the noise around me, and I like being able to like be typing and look off at this person and then type and then look off at that person. Like I like the energy of it, but not the like, I don't like dive in, focus.
Yeah, no, I don't like the noise. I actually have multiple pairs of noise canceling headphones because I don't want to hear anything except for like what I'm focused on. It's absolutely just like knowing that that's what everyone is here doing. Like everyone is here to work, and we're taking our work so serious that we paid for this membership to be able to do this 24 hours a day. So
she's amazing. Erica, what's your coffee shop? Like, do you work at a coffee shop or a co-working space?
I love a coffee shop. I'm a member of Emily's co-working space. I used to go. I haven't been in the new space, and I'm really waiting for the new space to open. There's a balance. Like I love coffee shop, but if there are too many people, I am overwhelmed. And it's like so I need there to be people, but I don't want you at my table. I don't want to share sitting space with you. But I want someone to look friendly enough that I can go to the bathroom and be like, can you not steal my stuff? Because I hate having to like move my stuff and come back. So it's like a fine balance. So I'm all like, as soon as I get to a coffee shop and I sit down, I'm trying to sit near someone who also looks like they're working, who also looks like they're not going to steal my stuff, so that I can go to the bathroom without having to take all my stuff. And everyone's like, why is that your thought process? Because I'm always looking out for someone to attack me at all times.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is. But I used to love a library, but I think because in college, like you kind of know, I used to study in the middle of the night in college. That was my time, but I knew that everyone else in the library was like, had swiped themselves in. So I felt less in danger. So like everyone here has a student membership at 2 a.m. because it's the only way we can get in. There's a random security guard who I don't think can keep us secure, but there's an illusion of security. And so like in the general public, I'm like, I don't know how you got in here. I don't know are you here to learn? What brings you here? So you can see my 6 is really coming out right now, because I'm always sort of like,
Amy, you're tight for the people.
Welcome. Erica is a 6.
I'm always assessing to see who might be here for nefarious reasons, or and someone was like, you were always worried about people stealing your stuff. And it's funny because I don't have anything. Like, you won't get very far. You won't be able to buy a house. Like
your skincare
my
products.
Dog is scared of everything. Yeah, my skincare collection is probably the most valuable thing I have, honestly. And so, but I just don't want to have to go through the effort of like calling the police, filing an insurance claim, replacing it. I really believe in ease. So I pay extra for convenience. 100%. Not like in a wasteful sense, but it's like I will spend extra money to buy this thing one time versus like not a lot of money to buy it over and over again, because I don't want to have to leave my house again to solve this problem.
That's fair.
So yeah, but anyway.
That's good. I've never thought about, I like when I sit next to someone who can watch my stuff, but I would not put that on my like top 3 like needs when I'm finding my seat. And so again, like the fascination of like what what goes on in people's head when they walk into a coffee shop. This is good.
Yeah. And I like going to a coffee shop with a friend because then that problem's solved, but it has to be the right friend, because one of my best friends, when we go to a coffee shop together, nothing is accomplished.
Nothing.
Some judgment of others has been accomplished, but no work has been accomplished. So it's even like finding the right co-working friend.
Yes.
Also will co-work and not create chaos.
Yes. I'm also big on space. I need to have my own table. I need to have my own space. I need to have all of my things laid out. Like, so if someone wants to share the seat with the table with me, I'm like, I don't know about this, because I need my space. I bet you're probably like that too, Kim, with the space.
Absolutely. Please do not sit at my table. No. Can't sit here. Seats taken.
By my backpack. That is.
Yes. Yes.
That's exactly what I do.
Oh my gosh. Well, Erica, how did the Enneagram show up for you this week?
So this past Sunday, I think, was it Saturday or Sunday? For whatever reason, I decided that I was going to calendar plan. I also have like my therapist says I have other specified ADHD. So which is very much in line with my diagnosed anxiety. So sometimes I just I just need to sit and plan. But I have not done this in months. I spent literally the entire day coding and color coding my calendar. And even I realized that this is not the best use of my time, but I could not do it. And then the rest of this week, I, when I'm really anxious, I wake up around 3:30 a.m. like clockwork. And it's I have this pit in my stomach, and I realized, I am very stressed.
Yes.
I am very stressed about there was some work stuff happening this week, and it was just until about Wednesday, I wasn't sure how the problem was going to be solved. The problem worked itself out. Everything was fine. But I think on Sunday, I tend to fight for something that I can control. And the thing that I could control on this past weekend was I can plan for the week of chaos that I know is coming. And so there were so many other things I really actually needed to do, but I literally couldn't make myself do anything but sit. Monk was on the background. I had coffee and I had all of my pens. I'm one of those people that has, what you can't see is I have a shelf behind me that is filled with planners, because I also don't throw them away.
I don't.
Because in my mind, I'm going to need the planner from 6 years ago to solve a problem in the present.
I'm the same.
I don't know why.
I'm the same. But I do go back to something, and I'll be like, that's right. In 2019, on May 25th, Kim and I went to dinner, and I know that because it's written right here.
Okay. Now I know. What is that salt? What in 2024? What's that salt? Can you give us some
maybe you might be like,
where do we go to dinner?
Where do we go? Or what that conversation? I don't know. I mean, I don't go back to an old planner often. I don't know how much you do, Erica. Maybe probably twice a year do I go in my stack of old planners, but that's about it.
Usually for me, it's to prove a point to someone in a conversation. It's no, this is what happened, and here's how I know this is what happened. And this has happened regularly, and it's not always, it really depends on where my energy is being spent and whether or not I need to prove a point. Because sometimes I genuinely don't care, but other times I'm nope, I'm going to win this one for no reason. It's not a value. It's not usually when I'm at my best. It's I'm done, and this is the thing that I can control. And so on March 13th, 2017, this is what we did. Told you. See?
Right here. Do you think so? Are there people that throw away? Why would you throw that away?
No, I don't know.
Well, me, I have it on my
you're digital
for it, right? So that eliminates, the physical need for it, and it's a lot easier to just go into a search bar and type a few words, and then boom, there it is. So the question was, why would you throw it? Because for me, it takes up space.
But since I was a young child, and I don't know where this comes from. I don't know what I saw. I have had a fear of being arrested for something that I didn't do or for something that I didn't know was a law. So my other reason for keeping my planners is to be like, no, officer, I was here on March 13th, 2017. I wrote it in pen in my planner. And so it's like a very, like, sometimes even in stores, I'll just make sure to walk by the security camera just so like there's evidence that I was here. And I don't know where this comes from, but like if there's a self-checkout line, I'll stand in front of the self-checkout camera. So it's like time stamped. I was at Target at this time. So I could not have been across town doing whatever that other Erica Smith did. That's the other problem is my parents were adamant that their kids would have social, like, names that wouldn't prevent us from getting jobs. But what has actually happened is I have a very common name, which has created other pretty severe problems in my life. And so like
you give me the unique name.
So yeah, it's like a lot of I have anxiety in various directions for things that don't always make sense. Like there's some element of truth being a Black person in America, being afraid of being arrested for things.
Yes.
But you know, the need to walk in front of cameras every time I go into a store just to be like, see, here I was in Macy's, not across town.
I mean,
the tapes in my planner says Macy's 2 p.m.
Got an alibi, my planner. And the tape, Macy's tape.
That's amazing and just so cool. Like actually, like it makes sense. It does make sense what you're doing. So I'm here for it. No, I don't use the planner for that situation. The planner for me also is it's a snapshot of the year. And so like, I don't want to lose the snapshot. So because I could be like, wow, that week was crazy. Wow, that week was really fun. Wow, that week, like.
How often do you do that from 2017?
No, yeah. I mean, I'm going to
like, let it go. Let the planner go.
It's a stack. No. I know exactly. They're right behind me. Like, I'm so tempted to like go look and see how big that stack is. Because I use the same planner too, because I can't switch. So it's the same style planner. I've been using it since grad school. So I probably have them all since grad school.
Yeah.
It's like a diary. Like, do you throw away your journals? Right. So to me, it's like that. It's like I'm keeping my journals and my planner.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I understand.
But now, thank you, Erica, for teaching me that now I also have alibis in here.
There you go. Here you go. Right.
Okay, and we're just getting started. So, you go, Camille.
No, I'm good. Okay. Oh yeah, my question.
Yes,
Erica, how did you first learn about the Enneagram? What's your origin story?
So actually, one of my best friends, she lives in Wilmington as a therapist, and she one day asked me, "Do you know what your?" And she said this word, and I was like, "My what? What is that?" She was saying the word Enneagram, but I was like, "I don't know what this is." And there was a time when I was very into Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
So it's just she knew that. So she said it's like another personality type, but it's more than that. And she said, and it's funny because people have always labeled me as a 1. And I just sort of like ran with that. And I didn't read to be fair, I did not read all of the types. I read one. I was like, oh yeah, this sounds like me. And it was in my business mastermind that I'm in now where she paid for us to all take like the big test or whatever. And it came out that I was a 6. And I did not like this. I'm not sure why, but I was like, this is not true. And my original fight was the 6 is labeled the loyalist. And I don't know why, but I was like, no, absolutely not. This is not. And it's funny because the people around me were trying to figure out, they're like, this is definitely you. But I think I've always been labeled as like an overachieving, hard worker, very strong, very independent, go-getter. And I wouldn't necessarily say that that's how I would have labeled myself, but it's how I have always been labeled since I was a kid. And so I think when the loyalist felt very passive to me, my nervous system was like, I can't be this because I have to be something else. And Emily and my therapist were like, tell me more about why this is so difficult for you, because I was very hung up on it for like several therapy sessions, and everyone else saw it. Everyone was like, this is very much you. This is, you carry the same anxieties, how I show up in relationships, some of the healthy and unhealthy ways. My friends were all like, this is definitely you. Because if you're having a bad day, this is you. And so I do know that I am a 6. I have moved to the place of acceptance, but I think it was sort of hard to recognize. It was very much 6s, in my opinion, and the areas of growth for me really are very connected people who are very relational. And that was the most challenging part for me, was this idea of dependence, and like healthy 6s have these healthy relationships and are very, there's a lot of people-centered connectedness that's part of a 6, which was very much not what I was hoping for. In my own like journey, like my identity, and how I think I saw myself as a very independent person. And that doesn't necessarily go away because of my Enneagram type. And there's like, other pieces of me too. But a point of pride that I definitely had to work through is that I used to always tell people, because people would ask me things like, do you want to get married? And I would say, like, I didn't grow up. I wasn't raised to want to be a wife. Like, that's not how I was raised. I was raised to be able to take care of myself and like, to be able to support myself and to get a job. And I sometimes question if my mother doesn't regret that, because now she has 5 kids, none of whom are married, and she has no grandchildren, but we all have jobs. So it's like, and so I just never like really, I think the way that I interpreted that as a child was that like, I need to be independent and I need to be able to take care of myself and not to need people, which is not the message that my parents were trying to convey, but it's the one that I took away. And I just never really had like this urge. I was never like, must find a partner, must marry, must go to college for these things, which is also kind of ironic growing up in a Christian household, growing up in a Christian family where marriage is like the pinnacle of womanhood. And I used to like really struggle because that was what so many of my friends wanted. And I was like, this is just not, I don't necessarily have that desire right now. Not that it would never come, but it just wasn't like that intimate relationship was just not something that I think I was taught to want. But because I think I associated it with weakness, honestly, this idea of like needing another person. And to be fair, a lot of the examples I saw of relationships were not healthy, and they were very codependent, and their identity was very much wrapped up in their partner. So I think that also supported this misconception I have of like the benefit and the value of relationships, was because I saw unhealthy, very codependent relationships. And so I think reading the 6, it was like, this sounds like a lot of connectedness with lots of supporting people. And it's ironic because my professional identity is very wrapped up in supporting people and like challenging unjust systems. But that is professional Erica. That is different than personal Erica. So I think and I make this point of like reading more about my Enneagram every week, which is about all I can digest, because I feel too seen in some of what it has to say about me. And I was really trying, because like when you read about it, like there are these scores. And so I was trying to like lean with the numbers, because my 6 score is not very far off from some of the other numbers. Excuse me. But I'm very much a 6. Like so I was like, maybe I can be a 5. Like it's really close to a 5. It's kind of close to a 1. But the more I like read about like some of the challenges, it's like, yep, that's me right there. And that's been something to digest.
How long ago did you say it was when your friend from Wilmington first introduced you to it? About
5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it was pre-pandemic.
And the sixth landing happened, you said last year?
Last year. Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this on the show, like that when you're trying to find your type and land on your type. I think what you just shared is such a common like experience and response. With the exception of maybe sevens, Camille, like, you know, land on our type. We're like, nope, I don't like this. I don't want it. Was there anything, Camille, about you, like when you landed on 7 that you read or that you weren't like, that you didn't like? No.
I don't like at first. No, I did not have a negative reaction at first. It, to me, reading it the first time was honestly more like, wait, why would anybody not do this? Like, this makes complete sense. And then but like, as I kept learning, then when I would see the dark side or the unhealthy side, I was like, yes, that is me. But I didn't have like a rejection of that. If anything, I reject when people, we've talked about this before, when people just gloss over 7s. That is what I reject, because I'm like, that's not quite it. But when I read like a good description of it, I'm like, yeah, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. So Erica, for you, it was that like this notion that 6s are dependent and really needing connection and relationships. For me, it was people pleasing. Like when I read that about, not people pleasing, being concerned about image. When I read that about these, I was like, no, I do not care what people think about me. And that's not true. And fear of failure, reading that, I did not want to accept that was something that I really struggled with. And with some more work, I learned that it's not, I mean, I don't like failing, but it's more so a fear of like coming across as being like a loser. That's what really, I don't like it.
I do think actually like that reading the Enneagram did label that I had anxiety. That was probably the first way that I was like, oh, I'm anxious. Like, and then it was like, oh yeah, I am. But that was a new like, like, oh, you do all this because secretly you're anxious. Yeah. But Erica, I love, like, that is so interesting. I'm curious what your, if you know what your subtype is, as a 6, because that would be interesting, because there's different, you know, flavors of the 6. And I think I do think there's the counterphobic, and then there's the 2 that I think one is less dependent. One is way more into the social aspect. I'm not sure which one is which. Do you know, Kim, actually?
I know a lot about that. Sexual 6, the counter.
I have books here, but I also feel like just so much of what you said, I was just really resonating with, about the dependency and needing people, and not wanting to need people, and I just was like really like, gosh, she's speaking my language.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think, so a little brief context. So I was diagnosed with lupus in 2003. So I was 12, and my mom was pregnant with my now youngest brother, which was my parents' 5th kid. My dad actually died in a car accident that December. So my youngest brother was 3 months old, and I am the oldest girl in a Christian Black family.
Yeah.
And my mom had like, my mom is one of the strongest people I know. I don't know how on earth she like raised us. But that was probably one of the, like, that season and the years that followed. Like, my mom talks about this in her own story, about how she learned how to ask for help, which was foreign to me. But I think my reaction to a lot of that was, and I was already an oldest child, like textbook oldest child, even before my dad died. But I think it really being a helpful, good child became like critically important to my identity. And being good at school and not like I worked my ass off in school because I knew them, but we couldn't afford to send me to college. And so I'm very grateful that I did have a full ride to college, but it wasn't because like, it was so that I didn't have to need my mom for this because she would have figured it out. She would have figured it out. But like, I was like, if I could take this away, there's one less thing for my mom to do. And like this idea of like taking so much responsibility, I think this was also why it was hard for me to like accept a 6 and I really identified with the 1 was because I was like, I have to be able to like do things on my own, not because my mom didn't care about me, but because there were 4 people behind me that she had to do this for. And I was like, if I can just like not be a problem, because I also was the sick one. So now some of my other siblings have health issues, but originally I was the one that was in and out of hospital. So even though I was trying really hard not to need people, I was constantly sick and couldn't do a lot of things on my own because of my lupus and arthritis. And so I think I'll never forget, because after my dad died, my mom, my memory of this, okay, I don't know if my mom has the same memory. My memory of this is we're in the car one day and then she's like, you're going to group therapy. I don't remember any preparation. I don't remember anything. I just remember being like in the car and then we went to like some kids group grief therapy where I don't think I said a word for the entire thing. And I did not go to therapy again after that until graduate school. I should have gone to in college, but I didn't go because someone else in my family was having a mental health crisis. And me being who I am was like, I can't afford to have a mental health crisis. We have to take care of this other person in my family. And so grad school, I went for the first time because it was free and I didn't have to need help from my mom to pay for it or didn't have to call her. So I went to this free person who I did not like, but I just knew I needed to be there. And so I went regularly. I don't think it was helpful, but it like kept me off the edge of having a nervous breakdown in graduate school. And then I didn't go again until, gosh, it was probably like 20.
Check your agenda. You got to check your agenda.
I check my planner.
First therapy session.
Check my planner.
You said 2018. You said 2018.
I think it was 2018. Yeah. And it was really the only reason. I love sleeping, y'all. Like I love naps. It's funny because I know people like I struggle with rest, but not with sleep. And so those are different things. I'll sleep. I will sleep. And so when we were picking out couches for my office, I was in rooms to go laying across the couch to see which one was long enough for me to take a nap on between sessions. And that is how I made my choice. But my sleep was getting affected and I was like waking up and I was like, nope, time to get some help because the one thing that I can do is sleep. And that's what brought me back to therapy again. Like I'm currently seeing a therapist regularly. But yeah, so I think like a lot of my family of origin story and sort of how I interpreted my responsibility in my family. And while it wasn't necessarily put on me by my mom, it was sort of put on me by other people in my family system about having to be helpful and how I needed to help my mom. And I think just in general, I wound up working with like a lot of oldest daughters and families as a therapist. And I'm like, yep, it's universal, isn't it? And so I think that's also one of the reasons that this acceptance of a 6 and like we all need relationship, but I didn't read about all the other Enneagrams. So like with the 6, like this relational piece and how we really want to be able to depend on other people and find security in relationships was jarring. Because I was like, that is not something that I could do ever, easily or, in a way that felt safe. Or I think also when you like have someone die like that in an accident, like there's not that if someone gets sick and you know it's coming, that's any easier, but it was like, one day he was here, one day he wasn't. I think that was really like a rip out of this idea of security. And so then being like getting attached to people when they can just be gone one day, was also another element of, nope, can't do this. I would rather just, wing it and have a good job, and call it a day.
The security of that.
Yeah. Because like that's within my control, is how hard I work and how hard I do these things, which I know even that's not really in my control, but it feels like I have the illusion of it. But relationships are very much more outside of my realm of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the context. Just for sharing and being
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and honest and open. We feel very strongly that context when typing, especially like for us and our community and our experiences, is something that has been missing and sometimes continues to be missing in like this space. And so, hearing you share, like it just kind of continues to like, validate that it's important for our experiences to be incorporated, included, like you said, growing up, in a Black family, with Christian values, like that shapes, context for sure when it comes to like when you're trying to figure out kind of at your core, like what motivates you. So, so yeah, thanks for sharing that.
It almost feels like you, and be like, I'm going to guess here, but like in the head triad, which is where the 6 is, it's like okay, if my motivation is security as a 6, it's like you problem solved the shit out of that. You're like, okay, people can leave. So that's not what I'm going to do. My mom has 4 other people behind. So that's not what I'm going to do. So where's my best option for security? And that's going to look like this. Whereas, context, other 6s might be like, okay, my best option for security is people. But for you to say I've seen life, and what can happen in life, and my best option for security might not be people. But I'm still going to run towards security, like what you're talking about with your career and working hard. That gives a sense of security.
Yeah. And I think it was always the thing that I could come back to. And in college, there was one point in college I had 3 jobs. I was a full-time student. There was a point in my professional life, because I was working in nonprofits, I had 4 jobs at the same time. And that was always, and my mom would always joke, you work like your daddy, because my dad had, my dad had some of those random jobs, but we were going to have food on the table. And he always had multiple jobs. And I think in my mind, if I could just work harder, then I would be safe. I would be okay. And one of my worst fears, even though my mom does not put this on me, was like, I can't call my mom for financial support. And not because she wouldn't be there, but because I was like, this is my way of like taking care of my family, is by not needing things. Because I also know that if I have a health scare, I have to call my mom, because one, she would kill me if I didn't call her. And so we have a different problem, but like, that's my emergency contact person. And so I'm kind of like always saving my mom's emergency needs for like, if I have a medical emergency, because someone has to do it. But these are all decisions, like I'm constantly making decisions for other people without asking them, which is another thing that, 6s can do, is like, I'm going to assume what you're thinking or what you need. In an act of one, also like saving this relationship. It's like the best thing I can do for this relationship is decide what you need in this relationship and be as try to minimize any inconveniences I could bring forth to you. On the other side of that, once we are in community, like we are attached, I can become very passive aggressive. So and my friends who are closest to me, they know that like if I become very quiet, it's because something in this relationship is bothering me and I am trying not to hurt your feelings because I'm such a planner, I will remember. I remember what you said. I remember what you did. It is not because I'm trying to hold a grudge. It's like, I literally don't know how to forget it. And so I have to really be like very mindful. And so the best thing that I can do in my mind is to withdraw. And I'm like learning how to communicate through. And so when me and one of my really good friends who she also prioritizes therapy, she's like doing a lot of her own work. We have gotten a lot better at being like, hey, this is bothering me. I'm trying to tell you now so that I'm not snapping at you later. And it's been received well. And she's able to use her communication skills and has been a really beautiful experience to be in relationship with someone who's also doing their own work. So I'm not because I think in some relationships where I have latched on too quickly, I'm now teaching you how to do these things because I have decided that I want to be in your life and I want you to be in my life. And that's going to be at the cost of myself because I can't detach very easily, which is why I don't attach very quickly. And it's funny, most of my closest friends, one of my friends is in town, she's coming to visit today, will tell you that they drug me into close relationship. My friend who's coming today, we met in college in the bathroom. We live in the same dorm. And I guess we were just on the same poop schedule because we would always be in the bathroom at the same time. And she would talk to me through the stalls. And I'd be like, ma'am, we are not friends. And she would talk to me in the stall in the bathroom. And she was just so polite and so kind. Anyway, now she's one of my best friends. But I always joke that like I couldn't escape her. It wasn't intentional. She was just like, we're going to be friends. And, more than 10 years later, 12 years later, we're still really good friends, even across her state moves. And a lot of my friendships, when I look back at like who I'm close with, they really were the like, you're going to be my friend and here's why. And I don't really care that you're using the bathroom. We're sharing a stall wall. So here we are. And I think it's been their effort that has like helped me feel secure in that relationship because it's like, okay, even though I have up steel walls, you were just like going to knock on them regardless, and show up regardless and then yell at me when I didn't call you when I wasn't feeling well. And that has been new in my adult life.
Mm-hmm. Can you share more about like specifically how you see your type intersecting with your blackness?
Yes. I think so. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Point of a podcast.
So growing up, I went to like my original introduction to school was Christian school where there were a handful of Black people in a very, like looking back, I can say it was a very, very conservative politically and like non-politically, it was just conservative all the way around. Girls wore skirts. The cheerleaders' skirts came down to damn near their ankles. It was just very, and so I was one of the few Black kids. I had a great foundational education because the education, like your math, science, English, all that was further in some ways than like public school. Yeah. I was pulled out in 4th grade when our teacher told us that our parents were going to hell if they voted for the Democrat. So this is such a vivid memory for me. Yeah. And so my parents pulled me out of that school when I came home, and I was like really upset because I was like, I don't know who you're voting for, but you're going to go to hell if you vote wrong. And here's what my teacher, Miss So-and-so, said. I remember her name. I will never forget this woman. And
then your parents are like, and that's that.
I cannot imagine.
Yes. So from there, they took me from that Christian school to put me in a different Christian school, which was actually primarily Black kids. That was a different experience because my home was also very conservative. So like I only listened to Christian music. I don't know if y'all know there was a Christian girl group called Out of Eden. I called them the Christian Destiny's Child. So like I was allowed to listen to like that, CeCe Winans, Yolanda Adams. So I went to this Black Christian school and I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't listen to the right music. I wasn't allowed to watch the TV shows that they were watching. And it was like a culture shock to my nervous system. And it wasn't a great experience, not because there was anything wrong with the students, but because I did not fit in. And when you're in the, fourth and fifth grade, that's what you want to do. I was homeschooled for middle school, which is when my dad died, which didn't help because I just like the school was fine. It wasn't a season for my family to be engaged in the community because of what we were going through. Then in ninth grade, I go to public school at a predominantly white school. And it's just like and so this is my first time in public school. So, and in my interaction with a lot of other people, not all people, but it was constantly that I was being Black wrong or I wasn't Black enough. And so I learned pretty quickly that like, I met Taylor Swift, not really, but like I met Taylor Swift's music when I was in high school. Loved it immediately. Her dramatics were my type of dramatics. But I remember vividly, I used to listen to Taylor Swift on like contemporary Christian on the way to school. And then when I got close to school, I would switch the radio station to, what is it, 106 in Park? Or no, that's a TV show. Whatever the urban radio station was. Nobody listens to the radio anymore. I don't know what it was called. I would switch and I put in my Chris Brown CD, which I didn't really like Chris Brown, but I knew when I was driving into school, I had to listen to the right type of music. I was already teacher's pet, goody two shoes, science Olympiad team member. And I wasn't. And so then I went to Carolina for school. So I was in another predominantly white environment. So I was never white, but I wasn't the right type of African-American person. And so this also further, I think, created more of me depending on myself, because I was like, I don't fit in any of these groups. And I think at Carolina, I was really hoping to find more Black people who felt like I felt, where it was like we weren't, but then I had no interest in any type of Greek life experience, which was also the wrong answer. Because I was like, this seems like an expensive thing. And I don't do well with people yelling at me. I start to cry when I'm angry. This just feels like I'm not going to love it. In some ways, like, I think it would have been a great thing for me. But in other ways, I was like, I was so tired. I was taking lupus meds. I don't got time for this. I was just trying to graduate. And so there was like all these experiences where I wasn't the right type of person for things. I didn't know what was going on because I couldn't understand references because I grew up in a very Christian household. I wasn't allowed to watch things. And so when people would, like in Black communities, when you reflect back on like history, I wasn't allowed to be part of that knowledge. And so sometimes people, even now, some of my best friends, and we've had to have some conversations like, you can't make fun of me for this. I wasn't allowed to be part of this information. And so, no, I don't remember this music video because my mom said it was for heathens. And so I just wasn't allowed to take part in a lot of cultural history that I think my peers recall. And so it's less of a problem now, mostly because I am okay with who I am. But I think because of my Enneagram type, there's such a desire for support. And then it feels like I'm showing up incorrectly just because I don't know some things. And it's funny because I love music. I went to the Eras tour. I am very happy about that. I'm a huge Swiftie. I've accepted it. But I also like other types of music. But it's just so interesting because I think one of my big things is like, I am Black because I am. And my interests are not, like, the Black community's interests are not monolithic. And I think this idea that, like, in order to be Black, you have to be one thing is very much part of an oppressive experience that comes from whiteness and comes from this idea to continue to separate members of our community. And I think that's one of my big like pillars. And so when I'm working with white people and Black people and they're saying certain things, I am very quick to challenge that, which is not always received well. But I'm like, we cannot continue to perpetuate the same stereotype that like this belongs to one group of people and we are not allowed to have interest in that.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I'll make fun of myself. I don't like cheese. Therefore, I don't eat macaroni and cheese, which I realize is just a huge thing. I just don't like cheese. I've not liked it since I was a kid. I don't know how to make macaroni and cheese, but I make the best desserts in the ring. And so I'm like, look, can't contribute this to the family cookout. But if you want my chocolate chip cookies, you're going to stop talking shit about the fact that I don't do this.
Right.
Don't make fun of me for this. Don't talk shit about me not making macaroni and cheese. Like you've set boundaries around your Blackness and how, you know, and I loved your statement of like, I'm Black because I am like, and I don't know, I love the boundaries that you've set around it.
It's been a process. It's been a process. And, I think I'm still learning and still trying to get some of that right. And there have been times where I've had to like remind some white people that I'm like, no, I'm Black, because these jokes that you're making are problematic. And this is why we are not as close as we once were, because I have told you these things and you have decided that I am not Black enough for your closed-minded interpretation of what it means to be part of a community of people for which I'm part of because I am. And I think, and I will say, in a lot of ways, as much as I hate to admit this, it was the election, it was two presidential elections ago that really made me this vocal about my own experience, because I was like, y'all not about to get me in this mess that y'all doing out here. And it was really me reminding folks that like, and I think also my clients, I think when I see Black youth struggling with some of these parts of our identity and this idea that they don't fit into the community because of their interests, is when I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. And it really makes me be a lot more verbal, because I was like, I know what it's like to live with this as a young person. And I've seen the damage that it does to even some of my friends who are adults now, that if I can have a very important conversation with one young person who can then grow up knowing that they are enough because they are, then my job is done. And so, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, like, for the courage to like allow some painful experiences to kind of lead you to purpose. That's hard to do, but it's needed. And so what you're talking about is so needed. It's such a common experience for many of us to be, for a number of circumstances and again context, like to be in settings where you're bullied or harmed, wounded by your own people for not being Black enough, have taken your Black card, like that. And so I loved hearing you say, we need to like stop that shit and stop perpetuating it. And the way you explained that, it really is like, it's more like residue from racism and whiteness, and that being centered where, we are carrying that on. And so again, thanks for the work that you're doing to stop that. And it's again very inspirational. You've inspired us in a number of ways already, from your skincare to what you shared about what you've been through and the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It sounds like there's so many layers to, which is again like the point of our podcast. There's so many layers to the Enneagram, and right, like you've talked now about like your family, the context of your family history, context of the schools that you went to, the context of the narrative around Blackness and that it should be one way, like how all of that has influenced your Enneagram number and being a 6 and how that shows up. So so complex. So complex. And I know, yeah, it's interesting, like similar story, right? Like being in white spaces and liking Taylor Swift and all that stuff. And so it's so interesting, like, and what Kim said, like, it's common. And it's like, there's so many of us, Black folks who have the same story. And we think we're all by ourselves. Like we think like, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't know those references. That game, the like black card game.
Oh my gosh. I hate it.
I hate that game. When people are like, let's play this, I'm like, I'm out. I'm going to go to the kitchen. Like I don't know these things. And so like, and so you're like, I hate that game, but there's so many of us that also hate that game. Like, and then there's people that love that game and are, know all the things. And that's wonderful. Like, but then there's probably, one or two in every group that are like, don't know those references, don't know this game.
Doesn't make you any less Black.
Doesn't make you less Black.
It just doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. Y'all.
Oh. Well, with all of that being said, like, what is one of your hopes, or multiple, but a hope that you have for Black people, a hope that you have for, on an individual level and a collective level as Black people are doing their work and you get to do work with Black people in your practice, but what's a hope that you have for us?
One of my biggest hopes is that Black folks in particular are brave enough to discover who they are. I think there are so many beautiful parts to each individual person. And I think so many of us are scared to lean into getting to know ourselves, getting to explore our interests, getting to be excited to share what we care about because it isn't socially acceptable as part of the Black community, as part of being a Black man, a Black woman, a Black trans person, a Black queer person. There's this idea that in order to fit into this narrative, this identity, I have to be this way. I have to enjoy these things. I have to know these references. The Olympics are on right now, and I'm so excited to see so many Black and brown faces in these different activities that we just we don't recognize a name that like Black people do this. We can do anything that we want to do if we find it interesting.
And we'll kill it too.
And we're going to be good at it.
We will be great at it.
Just watch out now, right? Like, I don't know. I love watching Frederick and in the gymnastics.
Yes.
And I said to, I think, my family, I was like, 5 years. Like the way that our women's gymnastics team looks now, which is 4 out of 5 people of color. 5 years. That male gymnastic team, next Olympics, I think you're going to have more than just Fred there. Like, because it's such a matter of representation and like, oh, I can. And so I'm so proud of him, and like his platform, and he knows his role. Like he knows that this is what my mission is to encourage Black boys to go to the gym and like tumble around and like, and I'm so here for it.
And so, I think one of the things I'm so grateful for in my family is like watching I have a sister and 3 brothers, and my brothers all have such varied interests. And I am like so proud to know them just because they are just great people, but also that they were brave enough to go do things that they wanted to do. One of our brothers is really into archery, and I'm like, and one year for Christmas, he asked for a sword, and I'm like, what are you going to do with this? But he just enjoys doing these survival skills. And we know that if there's ever an apocalypse, we need to find him because he's the only one with skills. The rest of us are screwed. And, my other brother is studying Spanish and doing all these really unique things that I think I'm just so grateful that they have grown up in an environment where that's celebrated, and like be interested in what my brother moved in with me a year or two ago, and he's an individual. There's no one quite like him. His bedroom is like a fever dream. It's got so many colors. Ooh. And just I can't go in there because he also has LED lights. And I'm like, you're 24. I don't be you. You be you. You know what? Let me not put an age on it. But I think they also inspire me and remind me that, like, okay, how do we create spaces where people, especially members of the Black community, are brave enough to be themselves, and are celebrated for being themselves, and are not pushed backwards into these containers of this is how you have to show up in your own identity. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the work that I do, and that, like, you don't have to make yourself smaller because you don't fit in with a problematic society's interpretation of who you should be.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Off that line. Yeah. You don't fit into a problematic, like, interpretation of what you should be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I love my mom. My mom and I are very close. She's probably going to listen to this so I can say it out. She, like, in retrospect,
she's probably going to listen to this exact one.
Mm-hmm.
This is
we'll duke it out if we have to. It doesn't change the fact that I love her, but she was like one of the voices for me who was like, you can't do that. Black girls don't do that. Black people don't do that. And you know, with growth and doing my own work, I'm able to realize, she's like, you were insecure about not doing more of what you really wanted to do, or you, like, weren't confident that you couldn't ride a bike, or that you're not good with plants. And so when you say things like that to me, like, it's just a projection of your own insecurity. And so that helped me to, like, be able to have the courage to lean more into, like, the stuff that I know that I'm good at and want to do. And so
what were some of the things that, like, growing up that she would say that to? Like,
well, I just mentioned 2 examples, and it wasn't all the way growing up. Like, when I started to get into plants during the pandemic, she was like, "Oh, okay, good luck. Like, I kill her, but she can't keep a plant alive." When I went to UNC for grad school, we were trying to, like, find a place for me to stay where I wanted to, like, an apartment, and I wanted to be kind of close to campus, but not too far. And I was like, maybe I'll, like, bike to campus. And she was like, well, you're gonna be the only Black girl biking because that's not something that, you know, Black girls do. So those are the 2 examples that kind of come to mind. And I didn't end up biking. I also think with that, when I was in the, like, 3rd grade, I had a really bad bike accident that traumatized her because a neighbor brought me to the door with a tooth missing, hanging out of my mouth, bloodied everywhere. So I think for her, just me on a bike, like, she has some trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also, like, I think of, like you said, with your mom and the insecurity, but I also think sometimes, I don't know about your mom, but sometimes it's the imagination that we don't, sometimes as Black people, we haven't had the ability to do, to imagine that I can do gymnastics, to imagine that I can bike ride and feel safe, and, you know, that I can swim. You know, like, there's an imagination piece to that. And I've worked with some of my clients. This happens a lot. I mean, we're probably all, as therapists, going to nod our heads at this. I have so many clients who are in corporate, and the benefits, they love the benefits. But then when it's time to think about leaving corporate to go into something a little bit more creative, or the thing that to own a business or to do these other things, it's such a barrier around benefits. And, like, we talk about how in Black families, that was what was, like, drilled in, and to have an imagination that, like, no, I can own a business. I can be a creative artist. I can do this thing that's a little bit outside the box. The imagination is thwarted, and that's hard. Or just, you know, I had one woman who's very successful, and she was just like, I didn't actually think about what I liked. I just thought about a job that was stable and secure. And now that I'm at the top, what do I actually want to do with this? And she's in her mid to late 30s, like, asking those questions. So the imagination piece is important.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think, for our parents, grandparents, like a lot of those projections and insecurities, they're rooted in like fear and, those things, like you said, like they're not safe, or they won't lead to security. And so I think, for folks who, if you can be aware that you're tending to kind of put a Black person in a box and say, oh, that's something that Black people don't do or can't do, like check yourself to see if some of that is happening. If you're one, like maybe envious because you don't have the courage to do it yourself, or imagine, as Camille is saying, or and it's rooted in some of that like kind of fear that's been passed down, which, hopefully we can find like some compassion for that and understanding for that because to a degree it's totally justified. But also, like Erica said, like Black, we can do anything and that we're interested in doing, and then we're going to like fucking kill it. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Anywho. Erica,
I liked hearing about your siblings, Erica, then the things that they're into and how unique everybody sounds, and the freedom that that you guys get to play around with your personalities, or have gotten to lean into playing around with your personalities.
Yeah, I think I will say my mom created a space where, don't get me wrong, there were expectations. There were a lot of expectations. Like, it was never did I want to go to college? It was weird. You were going to college, which I also recognize as a symptom of the oppression in this country and Black people not being able to access things. But I think I was also so hell-bent on trying things after I left home because I wasn't, I used to go home pretty regularly because I would take my brothers on sibling dates. So every month I'd take a new brother on a sibling date and we would go do things. But I also, left the country and studied abroad one summer in India by myself. My mom was not thrilled. But by that point, it was like, okay, well, you're going. I was volunteering. I was like doing this really helpful work, which is also very in line with our faith system growing up. So I was like, you can't say no to Jesus. And I played that card. And I think, me and my sister being brave enough to try things really created an environment where my brothers were also, and we also lovingly bullied them into trying things sometimes. Like, well, just go do this thing, big sister. Me and my brothers and my other friend were at the movies last night. And I was asking my friend, I was like, oh, do you and your sister fight like this? And he was like, no, we got along really well. And I was like, that's boring, which is not necessarily true. But me and my brothers have like a very fun, jovial relationship. And I am grateful that in all that we went through that I have a big family, because there was just so many personalities. And when one of us was not getting along with the other one, there were 3 other personalities to go turn to. But yeah, and now me and my brother live together and my whole family thinks it's so cute. And I was like, it's my first time living with a boy. I may never do it again. So
that's that. That's how that's going.
Okay, so you've talked about you mentioned therapy and what that kind of journey has been for you. Can you share something that you've learned from therapy that continues to like really just stand out to you or resonate with you, sticks with you?
One was I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And I think even though I'm a therapist, it is not necessarily an easy task to diagnose yourself, nor do I suggest that you do that. That's not what I'm suggesting. I just think when my therapist said it, it was like, oh, it was just, and it really shouldn't have been that eye-opening. But I also think for me, it was so long. This is just how I think. Like, this is just, and in my mind, like, this is how everyone thinks. You like constantly plan for the plan of the plan of the plan. And then you have a backup plan for all of those plans and a contingency plan. And that's apparently not what other people do. And I have a brain that was always thinking, but I think it was always celebrated because in spaces, if like there was a problem to solve or a project to do, the way I thought was celebrated. And so it wasn't a problem until I really became older and I like wasn't in school. And it was, there's so many times that I could not make my brain stop thinking, and stop planning and stop worrying. And, but I have been taught that this is like a strength because I'm not going to be caught unaware, unexpected of things. And so this idea that there are brains who can rest I was like, what does that mean? I don't identify with that. And it's funny, I started taking Prozac maybe a year ago. And I remember I was seeing a new doctor and I was filling out the GAD-7. And when you first learn to do these things, you take it yourself. I hadn't taken this thing for myself in years, and I was in the doctor's office filling out these things, and I was like, "This is not good." And my doctor,
you're like circling like most, like always,
yeah, always. And my doctor, who this is my first time meeting my new PCP, and she was like, "So you're a therapist, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "So these scores are very high," and I was like, "Yeah." And so we talked about it, and I started taking Prozac, and then I saw her again like 4 months later, and I said, "Is this how everyone else feels?" She was like, "I can't speak for everyone else, but probably, yeah." Because I was like, I still have the feeling of anxiety. But it's like I can wake up sometimes and I can just look outside, and I'm not thinking, "Oh yes, global warming, and here's where the ozone is." It's been such an interesting thing. And I still very much we talk a lot, like, do I need a higher dose? Because of all the other medications I take for my lupus, I'm very medication hesitant just because ultimately I want my lupus meds to be tip top shape and then everything else I'll figure out. So I think that, and then I think we talked a lot about the role of the necessary parentification that I had when I was younger. And how that has very much still at play. I think I do a lot better now. But even I remember when I asked my brother if he wanted to move in with me, my therapist and I had like a lot of conversations about what that means. And how I was looking to have a roommate because I was living alone. I don't love living by myself. And my dog, bless her, is not helpful. She's not going to protect me. It's not going to be helpful. And so like a lot of conversations about like, what was my responsibility? Because this is an adult. I have an adult being who, yes, I helped watch grow up, but this is a fully functioning adult person. And this is not my little brother. He is, and he isn't in this role. So a lot of like learning to let go, and in that has been such beauty because I'm able to see my brothers as people, fully functioning people, and not the children that I saw be children when I was in college. And I think even in some of my relationships, learning to let people be fully functioning adult people. Like I don't have to take care of this. And I think that's a big thing that I am trying constantly to develop is like, what is my role in being a friend and being a supportive friend, but also having my own boundaries and recognizing this is not my problem to solve. Just easier said than done.
Yeah.
Especially when it's family, because then my anxiety is at play and like, what if this happens? And what if this happens? I have one family member who is notorious for getting jury duty, and I don't know why that stresses me out that you got jury duty. I don't have jury duty. But I'm always like, don't forget you have jury duty. You have jury duty. Don't forget you have jury duty. You have to, and they're like, leave me alone. But for some reason, like you missing your jury duty is like, you're going to get pulled over and it's going to be a problematic situation. And they're going to be like, you missed your jury duty and your life's going to be over. And my mom was like, you have to, they are an adult. I was like, you're right. And so I just don't look at, I'm like, I don't need to know what mail you have. I just leave it in the mailbox and then I text you have mail.
Look at you.
Because, yeah. But yeah, so I think and as much as I want to be like, I'm done with therapy. I'm good. Mostly because I'm like, you are out of pocket and this bill is.
It's a bill.
It's worth it. It's worth it. But I'm like, look, I don't want to feel these feelings every other week for this price. Because I could just use it for something else. But I just recognized how differently I'm able to show up for myself and in relationships in ways that make relationships fun again and not. Don't get me wrong. I'm still at heart. I like my alone time. I like coming home and throwing my Apple Watch across the room. So if you text me, I don't know. But make relationship like partnerships and not me feeling I need to take care of things. Which is the big sister parentified oldest child who's a girl.
Yeah. Thanks for that. You hit on two like really big, important, like kind of things for us as Black people to continue to like make room for talking about so that there can be less shame and stigma associated with it. And that's medication and leaning into that if that is gonna be like helpful for you. And parentification. I feel like that's a word that it's an experience that is very common for many of us, but that like being able to name it, right, and being able to name things is important. Is still kind of fresh for folks. And so, yeah, and all of the effect, I mean, parentification and Black women, and there's so many ways it impacts us. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say my mom has done a really great job of recognizing and naming that both me and my sister, in a lot of ways, are parentified. But I think the difference is me and my sister took it on somewhat knowingly. In retrospect, like, yeah, it has its consequences, but it's one of those things where it's like being where my family is today versus the statistics of a parent dying when we were renting an apartment and he was the only one working. Like the statistics were not in our favor. And so I'm like so grateful. My dad had life insurance, which this is a plug. Get life insurance.
Yes,
please.
Yes.
Because you don't know when things are going to happen. But my dad had life insurance, which is the reason that my family like was able to survive that period. And so I think also parents, like there are situations when your kids have to be parentified. I'm not saying that like it's recommended or that you should put that on them, but I'm like, can you still make space and acknowledge that? And there were so many times where my mom tried to make sure that we were still kids. Like we still had birthday parties and we did dumb things with our friends within reason. And, she would ask me to watch my brothers. It wasn't necessarily, there were times where it's like, I need for you to watch your brothers. There's an emergency, but like she would ask me these things. And I think that is one of the reasons like my mom and I today are even still so close, because it's like, she was a very aware parent. And I think sometimes when people talk about their parents, I have to call my mom. I'm like, look, I know we got our stuff sometimes, but thank you, because I just had a conversation. But yeah, so I think, even that experience has been okay. There are lots of ways that this can be done. And even when life happens and sometimes you have to depend on your oldest kids for support, like how do you still make space for them to have their own experiences of being a child, being a teenager, as much as is possible. Because so many parents, I think, just dump that on kids and be like, this is what you got to do. And they forget that they're kids too. But yeah.
Kudos to your mom.
Yeah, kudos to your mom. Kudos to you. Like the work that you have done in therapy sounds like the work that she's done back then and then even now being aware. So, Erica, this has been so great. It's been such a good conversation. Where can people find you and get connected with you after they've heard, all your wisdom and humor? How can folks get connected? What do you have coming up that you're excited about that you want to plug?
Well, my practice whole mentality is in network. Lord Jesus, be a fence. With insurance. Woo, I was like, this is how I'm gonna die. This process. But so we've got my practice for folks who are interested in mental health therapy. And then on Instagram, my practice is whole mentality. My personal page is it's Erica Kendra. And this ain't no telling what you're gonna get on that page, but that's me. And then right now, my collective is open for therapists who are interested in growing their practice, the Embodied Practice Collective. And that's just a community where you get more of this, but we show up and we talk a lot about ways to, I'm really fortunate to have a business now. Lord, that's a whole other episode where I came from work-wise as a six, but to have a practice now that's in line with my values, and we get to lean into things about justice, and we get to talk about oppression and how it shows up and how social work is political, and the way that this country is operating is causing harm and creating trauma. And how do we create practices in mental health spaces that can identify and lean into that and are not perpetuating the harm that so many practices and mental health spaces continue to perpetuate.
Yes.
But yeah. And then at a coffee shop, ordering more coffee and not water. So
making sure that your stuff's safe. So if you see Erica at a coffee shop, you should tell her, I'm a safe person. I can watch your stuff. I can watch your stuff. Listen to your episode, and I know that you can go to the bathroom. You're all right.
Don't sit with her.
No,
we don't.
Separate table.
Yeah.
Just watch her sleep.
Yeah.
All of the work that you're doing. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother episode, but yes, because all of that. And I know Kim agrees just how that is so important to create spaces that are anti-oppressive and safe, and, even bigger than the word safe. We kind of overuse it, but just that clients and clinicians can feel that the issue is not just them, right? Like it's the system. And how as therapists and social workers do we and counselors do we support that? Yeah. And tear it down.
Thanks for your time, Erica, and thank you for your work, my fellow social worker.
Thank you both for creating the space for people like us to learn about ourselves and to see ourselves not as isolated experiences. So I thank y'all for this work that you're committed to, and I'm a big fan, and I don't be listening to podcasts. I listen to y'all. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So much. Feel honored. All right. Well, that's our episode with Erica. We hope you enjoyed it. We did.
Yeah. We'll see y'all later.
See you later.